Santa Land, the land of Santa. How you all doing? Hey, it's Chris back with another fragrance review, and it took me some gathering of courage, some guts, in order for me to think about this topic and present it to you. It's going to be about, I'm highly interested in the history of the mob, of the Italian-American mob in New York City, especially those five families, and especially the decades, the 70s and the 80s, when lots of things were happening, where great personalities, tough personalities were around in the game, living the life, as John Gotti called the life of the mobsters, the street gangsters, the thugs, the everyday life on the streets of New York City in the 70s and 90s. It was vicious, it was tough, and it was glamorous as well at the same time. So I thought, reading all these stories, I thought, what? Let's bring in some creativity, because this topic is actually quite tough and vicious. Let's bring in some creativity and think what these guys would have worn, or what they wore actually back in the days, or what would have fitted them, and therefore this got me intrigued, and I thought, why not? Why not? Since this is a topic of my interest, I'm taking a shot. I'm taking a shot at this topic, okay? I whack this topic. I just fucking whack this topic, okay, guys? And so let me see. What is my mind telling me, or my fantasy telling me that these guys would have worn? Now, to start up, the first fragrance is a fragrance from an American designer, and I know for sure that this has been worn by several of the Wiseguys. Wiseguys obviously are the guys who are made into the family of the Cosa Nostra, okay? And this fragrance is Geoffrey Bean's Grey Flannel, which is a nice, kind of flowery, charming barbershop fragrance. It's a heavy one. It's very much, I think it was released in 1976, so in the very heydays of the five New York families doing their business big time in New York City, but also like others like the Philadelphia mob with Nicky Scarfo, and this fragrance came out around that time, and I know as a fact that I say many of those guys wore it, and I can see why. It's fresh, it's invigorating in a charming 70s way. It's very difficult to wear now for me, but it's definitely classy and requires some well dressing. Okay, so it totally fits an image of a wise guy that is well groomed and well dressed and just going about his business. So I can totally imagine Grey Flannel, Geoffrey Bean, an original from the heydays. Another one that I'm sure, I don't exactly know that they did, but I'm sure they potentially could have worn this, because it came out in 1987, I think it was. Everybody recognizes the bottle. You can whack people with this juice, guys. You can fucking whack people with this juice, okay? You can whack them. Just take the cap off, and instead of shooting people, you just spray this shit, okay? And you can whack anybody within seconds, much better than a gun or whatever you want to use, So, Bijan, okay, Bijan, man, this is an atomic bomb. I know that actually several celebrities wore it at the day, like Sylvester Stallone and people like that wear it, maybe still up until this day, because this is still in production. It's a great 80s presentation. It's a bit feminine presentation, yeah, I totally love it. The scent is so amazingly tough and heavy, spicy, leathery, that it blows you away, basically, like a shotgun, okay? This is a total shotgun fragrance, and maybe the hole in the middle comes from actually a fucking bullet that has been flying through this thing, because this is a killer juice. This is as I say, you can whack people with this stuff. So definitely had to make my top 5. I was mentioning well-groomed people, well-groomed wise guys, nice suits, nice hairdo, nice ties, silk stuff, $2,000 suit and all that, like the King of New York, John Gotti, wore, and he showed it to the masses, to the media, and everybody was calling him the Dapper Don at the time. And I think a fragrance that came out in 1991, actually, so a bit later than the 70s and 80s, yet it's still, I think, fitting very well into this aura, this mood, this vibe, this hype, is a celebrity fragrance by Julio Iglesias. Obviously, Julio Iglesias himself was not a wise guy. He's not a wise guy, but this fragrance is smelling like this fragrance is smelling like the well-dressed John Gotti just walks out of his favorite Italian barbershop. Well-groomed, nice hair, freshly shaven, and gets into his limousine and waves at a few people because he was a celebrity, okay? This smells like this to me. Charming, old school, barbershop, just so nice and so inviting. Like, you know, it paints a picture of a nice guy instead of a wise guy. And obviously that was the image of Gotti as well. Everybody loved him because he seemed to be a nice guy, okay? Nobody knew what he did, or they only probably suspected what he's doing, but, you know, he was a very popular figure around Mulberry Street and Bergen Houghton Fish Club and all that in the days. So I think this juice would have 100% fitted him. I think he couldn't have worn it because he got arrested in December 1990. So when this came out, he was doing his time already. This picture that I said, John Gotti, freshly shaven, well-groomed, tremendously nicely dressed as usual, comes out of a barbershop on a sunny day in New York City, okay? Great juice from Julio Iglesias. And spot number 2, Trussardi Uomo, another Italian, right? You have to, it's the first Italian actually of my list. You have to have Italians in here, okay? Trussardi Uomo, I did a separate review on this juice. This is just limousine, car, leather seat luxury. Sit in with your nice silk coat. You maybe still have some cigar smoke around you, and you sit back in your leather seat limousine and enjoy a whiskey or something, and then go to your favorite social club, maybe the Ravenite on Mulberry Street. Those guys, subscribers from New York, you know what I'm talking about. Trussardi Uomo is totally that. Came out in 1983 in the middle of the heydays of the American New York mob, Cosa Nostra, and this is totally something I think they could have worn. And this is so, again, well dressed, well mannered, very determined, very gentlemanly, yet at the same time very tough as well. There's no mercy with this fragrance. This is a statement. This is a statement of elegance and of style, okay? So again, it, for me, could have tremendously well fitted John Gotti, or, you know, many of the other wise guys that have been around at the time. So Trussardi Uomo from 1983 on spot number 2, definitely. And we all know what these guys loved. We all know what they loved. What John Gotti called the life. Yeah, I mentioned nice cars, obviously girls, but I think most of these people were actually family guys, you know. So they treated their family in a nice way. Whatever they did in the meantime and in their business, we'll never probably know for sure 100%. But obviously girls were kind of groupies around these folks at the time. So that was another attractive thing about being a wise guy and living the life. But most importantly, I think, it was going out and having a nice dinner. Just a nice dinner at Sparks Steakhouse, okay? Or somewhere else in New York where you can enjoy your pasta, where you can enjoy your wine, to like $1,000 bottle of wine, or $500 bottle of wine, your nice steak, your nice seafood, the nice pasta, and then, you know, you have at the end your sambuca, and you check your Sambuca glass, and depending on how many coffee beans are in the Sambuca glass, you already know if your enemies are actually present or the FBI is present within the restaurant or not, because your waiter would put a signal in the form of coffee beans into your Sambuca glass as a sign that, 2 beans means this, 3 beans means that, 1 bean means this. Okay, so communication, right? Wise guy style communication in a restaurant. So there's one fragrance that totally represents this kind of feeling to me. Italian restaurant with a special vibe. Luciano Pavarotti, Luciano from 1999. So this is well beyond anything we're talking 70s and 80s yet. The smell is I've done a review in Philadelphia last year of this fragrance. This is just so Italian. It cannot get any more Italian than this. It screams sophistication, joy of life, la dolce vita, the life, like John Gotti called it. It really, I think it gives you the deliciousness of an Italian restaurant. The smell, the smoked prosciutto, okay? The smoked prosciutto, this is how it smells like. My wife always says it smells like smoked prosciutto, okay? It does. And so when I spray this on, I totally get into this wise guy mood, or this Italian kind of course these two are not necessarily associated, but for this review I kind of associate them because we all know the Italian heritage of this. And this fragrance, obviously Pavarotti was an artist, had nothing to do with the Wise Guys, and this came out much later than the decades I'm talking about, yet it totally, for me, in my imagination, totally represents the life of the Wise Guys back in the 80s and 70s, especially the part when they just chill and went into a restaurant, had a nice meal, okay, and discussed who needs to be whacked and when. Okay, that is the vibe that I get from this one, and I totally love this fragrance. To be honest, my wife doesn't like it, so I rarely wear it, but it's a great fragrance from Luciano Pavarotti. So that was my top 5, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you liked the topic. It's kind of a weird topic to talk about, but it's history at this stage almost. Especially these people I was talking about. The big players of the 70s and 80s, Carlo Gambino, Paul Castellano, John Gotti, Nicky Scar for Philadelphia, many people that have been around, and there's been I'm very interested in the history of this, and I have a special relic that I sort of cherish from a made man. I have it here, and it's a money clip. It's a money clip. It holds still a $1 bill. It's a money clip in the shape of a golf racket, I think you call it. And this money clip belonged to the Gambino family made man member Roy DeMeo, who was running a vicious gang called the DeMeo Gang, who were operating out of the Gemini Lounge. So there's been some rough people we're talking about, but this guy was one of the major figures of the Gambino family in the 70s and 80s, early 80s, until he himself got whacked in January 1983. And so I have this, and I kind of carry my cash like that, with some Pavarotti on, and I don't need to watch Goodfellas. I don't need to watch the Godfather. I don't need to watch Casino, because I get the vibe, anytime I want. I just walk down to my nice Italian, have a nice meal, okay, stay with good friends, and discuss some matters that need to be solved, okay. It's as simple as that. So I'll be back with more, and it was a pleasure to talk about the Cosa Nostra in this way, and I hope nobody gets offended by the topic. It's just another approach that I have in my fantasy and my creativity towards fragrances. Okay, that's all. It's all about fragrances. So thanks very much. It was a pleasure, and I'll be definitely back.